Hi people, it's Archivist here, and today we're going to be taking an early look at Destroy All Humans for the Xbox One X. So I normally don't tend to get third-party titles on the Xbox, especially if there's an option for the PC. However, in this situation, if you pre-ordered it, you could actually get it a little bit early, and as someone who loved this game, and I mean like borderline was obsessed with this game and its sequel back when it came out, wow, such a long time ago now, I was so eager to play this. And overall, I'm really enjoying the remake, but I would absolutely like to point something out which caught me off guard. So, although the graphics are quite nice, which you'd expect from a remake, there is something a little awry going on here. The frame rate in the remake on the Xbox One X specifically, I've only played this version so far, so I'm afraid I can't really talk about the base Xbox One. But the Xbox One X, it leaves a bit to be desired. So unfortunately, I don't have a frame rate graph for you, but I will be capturing the footage with a capture card at 60 FPS. So what you see on the screen is a representation of what I'm seeing. And the interesting thing is it's constantly dipping, like not just occasionally, but I mean always seems to be dipping the frame rate in this. And I was a little bit disappointed and also a little bit confused because I think the resolution of this game is 1080p, which is very, very low for an Xbox One X game, first of all. Like, it's not appalling or anything like that, but it is definitely low for an Xbox One X game. But with that, I thought, okay, if I'm going to have to play it at 1080p but I get a 60 FPS game, you know what, I'll take that because I am a big advocate of high FPS in a game, and I almost feel like the industry's become a bit obsessed with pushing visuals so far that we end up with 30. But this is a situation where I wonder if 1440p at 30 frames per second may have been smarter, because quite frankly, it's just not hitting that target like much at all, to the point where it's distracting. And for different people, there's going to raise a different question, right? Because some people I speak to, and it's all preference, so there's no wrong answers here, guys. But for some people, it's like the higher the frame rate I can get, the better. If it's 55 FPS over 30, or it's 54 or 45 over 30, if it's 35 over 30, so long as it is higher, I prefer it. That's actually not my particular stance. I like consistency. Consistency is like everything to me with frame rate, because as long as it stays about the same, so either locked 60 or locked 30, I tend to, after playing it for just 5 minutes, my eyes adjust and I get used to it. But in the event that it's fluctuating constantly between like 60, I would imagine what I'm seeing in this game is usually 60 to 50, sometimes going into the 40s. But when I'm constantly seeing that fluctuation, my eyes just can't adjust because the frame rate is constantly altering. So it's not one of those cases where even with a 30 FPS game, you can play it and after 5 minutes, you've just mentally adjusted to it. Sometimes if you go from a 30 FPS experience, go play a 60 and then back to 30, it can look appalling, but then you play it for a bit and you just adjust. But when it's constantly fluctuating like it is in Destroy All Humans Remake on Xbox One X, it is a bit distracting to this extent as well. A bit of fluctuation is to be expected. To optimize a game so perfectly to just rigidly stick at 60 would be, it's not an easy feat. It absolutely is a challenge. But I really wish there was something that could be done here, but I'm honestly not sure what. My heavy suspicion as to why this is happening is I think this game must be very CPU dependent. And that could make sense because when you first play this game and you're in turnip seed farm and you're just looking at a few cows in the field, there is quite a lot on screen, but the frame rate is pretty much locked to 60, at least during the gameplay. But the difference here versus a lot of the other areas is there aren't many NPCs. And typically what you'll find is when you enter areas, not just in this game, but any game that are NPC heavy, because of all the scripting, AI moving around interactions, it starts to mean that a lot of tension is put on the CPU as opposed to the GPU. And what's sort of notorious about this generation and really stands out on the enhanced consoles, so the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X, is that although they both have very formidable GPUs, their CPUs leave a lot to be desired. And I think what's happening with this game is that the CPU of the Xbox One X is just acting as this huge bottleneck. So even if they reduced the resolution to like 900p, perhaps even 720p. Although that would allow for more bandwidth on the GPU, that's just not the problem. The ultimate issue, I think, what's happening here is the CPU is getting hit very hard. Hence, we're seeing all these drops. So, although I've heard some people say, "Oh, what about a performance mode?" Well, I think the only way you're going to get a performance mode out of this is if you start dropping the number of characters on screen at once in certain areas, and unfortunately that would start affecting the gameplay, because a big part of this game is basically harvesting humans' brains and collecting them to upgrade your abilities and just move on with the story. And if you start reducing the number of characters on screen in these areas, then you would actually end up having a gameplay detriment. So I don't think it's as simple as there's a performance mode. So my takeaway, because I really want to experience this game basically as good as I can. I really want to enjoy this because I loved the original so much back in the day on the PlayStation 2. Like it's actually bizarre how much I liked it. It's one of those things where I think everyone's got that game that they remember from their childhood very fondly. And sometimes it's a classic, like some people say, "Oh, I played Mario 64," and then everyone stands up and claps because they all agree with them. This was my Mario 64, bizarrely. I really enjoyed it, and I want to play it at its best. And I just don't believe this is the best it can be. So what I think I'm going to do is I might actually go for a refund on this version and just go to the PC. I was only playing it for about 5 hours, so I don't mind redoing it. I mean, hell, I'm redoing the whole thing, right? It's a remake. But I want to try it on the PC because there I've got my i7, so it won't have the same CPU bottleneck. And, well, 2080 Super should be fine on the GPU side. And honestly, even if all I can get out of it is 1080p at 60, but a true locked 60 rather than this, I'll be happy with it. So just a fair warning, everyone, if you're considering getting this game, and like me, sort of you've got the choice between consoles and PC, well, actually, I don't want to give that recommendation because I haven't tried the PC version yet, other than the demo, and I do remember the demo at least being better than this on the PC. But I know I'll hold recommendations for now. I guess I'll leave a pinned comment or something if I try the PC version. It turns out to be much better, and I'll throw some stats in. So just a fair warning: if you're looking at this game like I was, and you're kind of excited about it, then just be aware of the performance on the Xbox One X. And I would imagine the Xbox One S. To be honest, I would recommend looking at some proper performance tests elsewhere on YouTube if you want to see both of the versions. So, as always, people, thanks very much for watching, and see you next time.